Hello and welcome. Let's talk about this wall. So specifically, this is from a company called Wall Control / their subsidiary called Pegboards, and it is an improvement on the classic pegboard that we all know. This particular system has worked well for me, though if I had to do it over again, there are some things that I would do differently, and we'll talk about those in a minute. First off, why did I go with these as opposed to some of the more dedicated gun-specific panels that are offered from like Galotech and Tactical Walls and others? Honestly, there's two reasons. One, because these are significantly cheaper, and I would rather spend money on guns and ammo and magazines than on a glorified pegboard. And two, because these are more flexible than the dedicated gun-specific panels. So for my bayonets over here, these are plastic pegboard mounts that are like $20 for 100 of them, and they are perfectly adequate. There's no reason to get into an expensive proprietary system for stuff like that. But for heavier items that require a more secure mounting option, I can use the Wall Control metal brackets that are much more secure. So let's dive into the details. This is the panel I recently picked up for a different wall, and with it you can see that these panels actually have a spacer built into it. So unlike with traditional pegboards, you don't have to put a separate backing so that it spaces it off the wall. You can install just this single panel straight onto a wall and it is pretty much good to go. Also, the spacing is the right length for standard American stud spacing. So as long as your building is within spec, you should be pretty much good to go without too much trouble. Looking at the mounting options, you can use any of the classic pegboard style options. I personally prefer the plastic ones. Those just seem to work a little better for me for most of my utilization of it. Though obviously I would not hang an actual firearm on it unless it was something like a pistol. And of course there's the proprietary Wall Control style, which are these vertical slots that fit in and then lock down, and they're much more secure. And all their mounting brackets are made out of metal. The one thing to keep in mind with those is that vertical panels versus horizontal panels, be sure to get the right one for the application that you want so that the mounting slots are in the right orientation. But these brackets work much better than traditional pegboard brackets, especially when we're talking about mounting heavier items. And with these, there's options for mounting rifles horizontally as well as vertically. Though all of mine that I have mounted vertically, the butt is actually on the floor and it's just leaned into the bracket, so take that for what you will. One thing I do not like is the rubber coating solution that they have. I wish that the entirety of the front half of this bracket was just dipped into rubber and coated that way, basically, as opposed to this stick-on kind of slip-on rubber. This works fine, I guess, but it's less than ideal. And I don't like that if you don't pull out the extra metal piece on the end, that in and of itself can become a scratching hazard. Okay, so now on to more specifically what I would do differently. First off, the color. I went with black because at the time it was the safe option, but once I kind of committed to that color, I kind of had to go with it so that it would be consistent. But this matte gray, this is the way to go. There's a reason like Galotech and all the more gun-specific panels are in this matte gray, and it's because this is objectively better for contrast and it just looks better. If these panels ever come off this wall because I move or take them down for any reason, I'm most definitely going to paint them matte gray. Secondly, I would think about doing a solid backer for this installation. While yes, you can just mount it straight into the wall, and as long as your studs are spaced correctly, you'll be good to go. If you start off wrong or a ½ inch over, and yeah, you might make it in the stud, but once you're 6 panels down, you're not on the studs anymore, and then it becomes a bit of a problem. So these are mostly in the studs, but they're not nearly as secure as I would want them to be. They've been fine, they're not peeling off the wall, they're very sturdy, but they are not as secure as I would want them to be. And if I had a solid backer that was properly mounted into studs and then the panels mounted into that, I would feel better about it. I don't have too much weight on it, so it's kind of a but that is something that I would do differently if I were to do it all over again. And lastly, I have yet to figure out a really good way to display pistols. Obviously I have this one here, but it's just 2 plastic pegboard mounts and it kind of just falls in between them. It's okay, but it's not great. I suppose I could just hang pistols by the trigger guard, but that is weird and upside down. I guess the best solution would be probably to have a shelf and then one of those pistol inserts where you can just kind of line up a couple of different pistols, but that's still meh for me. So for now, my pistols are just over in the corner on a shelf. All right, and that's the wall. Let me know if you have any questions about it. I can answer what I can about, living with this system. Obviously, it's not like the world's most ideal solution, but for me, it was the best, specifically budget option that I could put together that I think still looks really good. So, all right then, I'll see you guys next time.